Welcome to Codex History of Video Games. I'm Mike Coletta.
And I'm Tyler Osby.
And today we're talking about personas.
Yes, we're back. We're back on in it. Our baloney here with
I gotta say,
personas.
You're getting me back into this. You're getting me, I wasn't into Persona really, and now I'm getting in. I find myself being pulled into its gravity here. I'm excited.
Well, Persona 3 Reload is the perfect starting point for any Persona fan. It's on Game Pass. It's brand new. It looks like a brand new game because it's not 20 years old. And they make lots of quality of life improvements to the game. I highly recommend it. We'll talk a little bit more about that when we get deep into it.
Well, I'm thrilled. I'm excited. That's what
Good.
I'm saying. Is the story as zany as the other ones?
It's good. It's not as it's weird because it's like anime weirdness, right? Like it's a sort of sci-fi story. It's weird, but it's not like you're not killing Hitler in this one. It doesn't get that weird.
Okay. It's just the normal levels of weird. Normal video game weird.
Normal levels of video game weird. Yeah. So yeah, we've made it past the early Persona games, which those are great games. Don't get me wrong. They're generally not what people think of these days when they think of Persona, this sort of like half visual novel, half JRPG sort of thing. That didn't really kick into full gear until Persona 3. And very conveniently, this is the first Persona game that I ever played. And it's a huge influence on how much that I love Persona and also just JRPGs in general, because I had been mostly like a Final Fantasy fan before that. I'd played some other JRPGs. I mean, we all played Pokemon, of course. But when I played Persona, I was like, maybe I'm more than just a Final Fantasy fan. I'm actually more of a broader JRPG fan. And so that it really, really brought me in there.
Self-discovery via Persona.
Yeah. It doesn't feel that old, but Persona 3 is actually almost 20 years old. So it came out in 2006 in Japan. So 18 years old.
Yeah, that's way older than I thought. That's me graduating from high school old. That's how old that is.
Yeah, that's a while ago. That's a couple of years before I did.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's funny because like I have to take a step back here because I still think of it as like a relatively new game, and it's not. It's old. Like if I were to play a 20-year-old game when I first played Persona 3, that would be a game made in the 80s. It doesn't feel old to me, but like I have to recognize that it is old.
It's old. Yeah. I think we have that now that we are all like we remember those games coming out, it still feels new to you. Like I always am like, oh yeah, Skyrim, and I'm like, Skyrim's old, man. Skyrim's really old now.
Yeah, it really is. But like I still look at it and I go, man, this game still looks good. Like,
yeah, right.
I don't know if we've hit like a place of diminishing returns on video games, or if it's just like that's just how it happens. Like people who are 20 years older than me still think of Super Mario World as a brand new game, I don't know.
Who knows?
Yeah. So we've covered the first Persona, and then we've covered both Persona 2s in past episodes. So if y'all missed those, you can go back and give those a listen. The nice thing about Persona, though, is that each numbered entry in the series is kind of a fully self-contained story that doesn't really build on top of older titles. Persona 1 to Persona 2, and then, of course, both Persona 2s are related to each other. Like, there's a bit more relation between them. But from Persona 3 on, they sort of do the Final Fantasy thing. They're not in like completely different worlds. They're not totally separate things. They all take place in the same world, which is our world, like the real world. But they really only have kind of like passing references to older titles. And those are really only there so that you could be like the Leo with the beer can meme, where you're like, oh, they said the thing, right?
Oh yeah.
So it don't really affect the story in any way though. But yeah, they all have their own different like not real worlds, because every Persona game has like a separate like secondary world, whether that's the metaverse in Persona 5 or the TV world in Persona 4 or the Dark Hour in Persona 3, which we'll get to. And then the gameplay in these Persona games, these later ones, they don't change a lot, although each game kind of adds its new twists to the gameplay formula from previous games. They kind of feel a little bit more like going from one generation of Pokemon to the next, although maybe even not that big of a leap, where it's like it's still like the same game, but there's a little difference, right? So yeah, and that's different from Final Fantasy, where each entry past like 10 is like completely different gameplay as well. Like it's hard to even like, what is a Final Fantasy game anymore? Like what about Final Fantasy 16 makes it a Final Fantasy game? And in fact, you'll see a lot of people out there being like, Final Fantasy 16, not a real Final Fantasy game.
Ooh.
Which, I mean, it depends on how you define it, because if you want to be really strict, then basically everything after 10 is not a real Final Fantasy game. Anyway, this is about Persona. We're not talking about Final Fantasy here. I could talk all day about both of these series. So Persona 3 kicks off the modern era of Persona, and every game after this one draws heavily on what Persona 3 built. So let's talk about the Grime Facts.
We love Grime Facts.
We sure do. It was developed by Atlas and published by Atlas. It released in July of 2006 in Japan, August of 2007 in North America, and then there was a re-release on PlayStation 2 called FES. I don't think that stands for anything. I think people just say Fez. Maybe it stands for, I can't remember what it stands for. But it was released in April of 2007 in Japan, and then April of 2008 in North America. So North America didn't even. Yeah, Delilah is like really upset.
She's
FES stands for right now.
She's been on a tear lately.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping she just settles down here, but she might pop in. I'm sorry, everybody, but that's okay. I think she's settling in. She's going to the box she sleeps in. We're okay, everyone.
Good. We love podcast producer Delilah here.
We do. She just she knows what Fez means, and she's mad that you don't know.
Yeah, I know. Fez came out in Japan. It came out before the base Persona 3 came out in North America. So astute observers probably maybe skipped the base version of Persona 3 and just waited for Fez, although they had to wait over a year for it, or almost a year for it, which is like kind of a bummer for them. It also came out on the PSP in November of 2009 and July of 2010, respectively, in Japan and North America. And that version is called Persona 3 Portable, and it also came to modern consoles and PC like last year, January of 2023. And then Reload, which is the full remake, came out in 2024 February. So that's the version to play. If you want to play this game, you're unfamiliar with Persona as a whole, and you're like, that sounds like a great one to jump into, because it is. Reload. Just play Reload. Also, it's on Game Pass, so yeah, it's great. It is
There's
not
no
on
reason
Switch.
not to. There's no reason not to. Will it be on Switch, you think? Will it show up on Switch?
I gotta say, I think that it would have it would have already, because they launched it at the same time on PlayStation, Xbox, PC. Like, I think they would have put it on Switch if that was in the plans. So I don't know if
they're saving that for a big Switch announcement. They're saving it for like next year. They'll be like all the Persona games, you know?
Yeah. Persona 3 Portable is on Switch though, so you can.
Oh.
The portable version is on a portable console. Hey, how about that?
Hey, look at that.
And some people will actually say they probably prefer portable because you get the option to play as a female protagonist, which changes some of the social link stuff. I have not really spent much time with that version. I played a lot of the original, and then I just recently finished Reload on PC. I don't know how many number of copies this game sold. I meant to come back to that. And how many copies did this game sell? How many copies of Persona 3? We're just looking it up in real time now. Persona 3 Reload sold over 1 million copies. Persona 3 Portable has sold a few 100,000. It did well. It did well. Okay.
It's a good game. It's a good game.
People like it.
We don't really cover the bad ones as much as people want us to. They really want us to, but we
That's
don't.
True. 3.5 million units for the whole series around the world, according to VG Sales Wiki. So it's good. It did well. That's the takeaway there. It's JRPG. Also, some people will say it's kind of a life simulator or visual novel, which I think is very accurate. Once you get into Persona 3, it's kind of half and half, really.
High school simulator.
Yeah, high school simulator indeed.
Plus demon fighting.
Yep. It's half demon fighting, half just being a normal kid.
Just like normal high school.
Right. And that was my experience in high school. I fought a lot of demons,
most
of them metaphorical.
Inner demons.
Which is sort of the whole point of Persona, actually.
Yeah,
that's
we really just ran straight into their metaphor, just right into it, colliding with it.
Just dead on. The game takes about 60 to 80 hours to complete. It depends on if you have the Fez version, which has like a sort of an expansion called The Answer, which is widely regarded to be not very good.
Oh, no.
But it is coming to Reload in the fall, I think. But it took me, I put about 75 hours into Persona 3 Reload. And it's kind of hard to like do a speed run of it unless you're just like skipping dialogue. Like you could probably do it a lot faster if you're skipping dialogue, but the game really operates on sort of a fixed time schedule. So this is a pretty accurate depiction, I think. The Metacritic score is 86 for the original, 89 for Fez, because I guess some people did like The Answer. And then similar scores for the portable version and Reload. Portable does not have The Answer expansion stuff. So there's like, depending on which version you play, you kind of have to play them all if you want the full, complete Persona 3 experience, which I don't love. I wish that they would have brought the female protagonist to Reload, and I wish they would have brought the answer to Portable, even if it's not very good.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Just to be complete,
Just to be complete.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. But between Portable and Reload, once the Fez content comes to Reload in the fall, you've kind of got it covered, I think. So the most important part of any Persona game is the story. I know in other Persona episodes, we got into some heavy spoilers. And I kind of want to avoid that here because, I think they all have really great stories. I think Persona 3's is really cool and has some really great twists and turns that I don't really want to spoil because I think this game holds up well enough that if you're interested, you should absolutely play it, especially with Reload having just come out. We're sort of cheating here because it is an old game that was just recently remade. So I feel like when they're older, and that's kind of the only way to play them, spoilers are okay. But this game is like sort of relevant in the current zeitgeist of video game talk. So I don't want to spoil it too much. Also, I just love it, and I want everybody to experience it.
Yeah, I like that. It's good. We shouldn't spoil stories on games that like have remakes that just came out. So
yeah. So, but we can give you kind of the TLDR here, the sort of the setup on it. The game takes place in the near future of 2009, which was the near future when the game first came out. So it checks out, right?
Still future, if you ask me.
Yeah. Everything past 2008 for me is like present day.
Present day. We're in the future right now.
Yeah, that's right.
We also don't know how time works. Did we mention that part?
No, I have no idea how time works, and I will not bother to learn.
Nope, not interested. Won't Google it.
Nope. The game takes place in the air quotes like fictional city of Tatsumi Port Island. I say air quotes fictional because Tokyo knowers will generally agree that it is heavily based on an artificial island in Tokyo called Odaiba. There are some references in Persona 5 to Gekkoukan High School, which is the school in Persona 3, and they actually say that it's in Odaiba. So I'm going to go with that because Persona 5 does take place in like Tokyo proper. It's not like a made-up fictional Japanese city because Persona 4 takes place in Inaba, which, as far as I know, is not a real city, although probably is based on a real city. We'll find out when we get there.
I wonder what made them decide to go from these fictional places that are based on real places in Japan to being just we're in Tokyo. We're there. I wonder what the shift was.
That's a good question. If I were to speculate, I would probably say maybe they wanted to do another like sort of fictional city in Persona 5, but when they decided to base it on Tokyo, they were like, you know what? You can't just like pretend that this isn't Tokyo when it's clearly Tokyo because it's such a famous city and like everybody knows it. Whereas some of these other cities, if they're based on real cities, they're probably not very popular cities. So maybe you can like get away with the fictionalized version, but it's like, look, we know we're in Tokyo. Like, let's call a spade here and just call it Tokyo.
Yeah.
That would be my speculation on that. So you play as the main character, who is a mostly silent protagonist whose name you are able to set yourself. When Matt in Japan and I played this game, when it was brand new, we named our character Steve Thompson. And now every time I've started a playthrough on this game since, I also name him Steve Thompson.
I love it.
The anime adaptation of Persona 3 calls the character Makoto Yuki, which is a little confusing because Persona 5 also has a character named Makoto. Apparently, Makoto is a gender-neutral name in Japan, so because the character in Persona 5 is a girl. So Makoto, I guess, is the canon name of the Persona 3 protagonist. In Persona 3 Portable, you can choose to play as a female protagonist, like I said earlier, which doesn't change a lot, but it does give you access to some different romantic social links. And we'll go over social links in a bit, which is why it is worth playing Persona 3 Portable. If you're trying to get the full experience, playing as a female protagonist in Persona 3 Portable is worthwhile because the social links are different and every social link has kind of its own story. So if you want to experience those social links, it's worth checking out Persona 3 Portable. So because you're a high school kid in this game, about half of the game is managing your high school social and academic life. Like seriously, if you're here for just some sick JRPG combat and great battle tunes, you're going to be disappointed with the amount of not fighting you do in this game. The basic game loop is this. You wake up, you go to school, unless it's a Sunday or a holiday. Yes, school exists on Saturday in this game. That's like a Japan thing. Some schools do have school on Saturday, not all of them. I'm sure Matt in Japan can maybe give us a more detailed breakdown of how that works. I don't know. Maybe
Are you putting up the Matt signal right now?
Matt signal?
The Matt signal has been placed up.
Yeah. So yeah, Gekkoukan High School is one of those schools that has school on Saturday. So yeah, you go to school and then you do stuff after school, you do stuff in the evening, and then you go to bed. And it's generally your choice of what to do during the times when you're not at school. You can use this time to make money at jobs. You can build social skills, there are 3 social skills: academics, charm, and courage. And they sort of, your ranking in those sort of governs a few social links that are like available to you.
I think when I watched you play this game, we were laughing because some of those don't really match up with what you think they should be.
Yeah.
Like, it's very funny.
If there's like a quiz in class and you get asked to answer a question, and you get it right, you'd think that would like raise your academics. No, it raises your charm because everybody thinks you're so cool for knowing the answer to the question.
That's right. If you know the answer, you're cool, which is true, just like in real life.
Yeah. So yeah, and then this is also during these times are when you can advance social links. And some social links are only available at night. Some of them are only available at school. Some of them after school. Like there's a balancing act there if you're trying to min-max your way through it. And I'm sure that if you look it up online, there is like a perfect run that you can do. If you follow everything every day and do the exact thing that the guide says, maybe you can see all of everything and like max out every social link. Speaking of social links, that's a new system that is now standard in Persona games. And I would say like inextricable from it at this point, because the social link system is not in Persona 1 or 2.
That's right. You mentioned that, I think, in Persona 2, this is a system that's straight up originated in 3.
Yeah. Yeah. And it sort of takes the place of this like negotiation thing that the first 2 games had, where you could like, the way you recruited personas to your team was like to sort of like have a conversation with them and like kind of convince them to join you. This social link system is sort of the like spiritual replacement for that. It's not exactly the same, but when you max out a social link, you do get access to fuse like an ultimate persona of the arcana that social link represents.
Nice.
So there are 22 social links in the base game. It varies a little bit between the different releases, but about 20 social links, a little more. Each one is kind of its own self-contained story where you hang out with a person in a one-on-one scenario, you learn about them, and then as you advance the social link, which maxes out at 10, you gain bonus points when you fuse personas from that arcana. So if you're like fully maxed out and then you fuse a persona from a social link that you have maxed out, you get like a bunch of bonus experience points, and it's really, really great. We'll talk about Persona Fusion in a little bit too. There's like a big ceremony that happens every time you advance a social link. That's pretty fun. And then you get those super powerful personas, or the ability to fuse those super powerful personas once you max out a social link. I don't know if I actually fused any of those after the last one, because there's a lot more. Persona Fusion is like kind of a opaque, mysterious thing to me that I don't do a whole lot of when I play these games, which is probably why I have to play them on easy mode, because that's probably the best way to like get powerful personas. And
also, we support easy mode on this podcast.
We sure do.
We've been very clear about that. It's okay to play it on easy mode.
Yeah, I played on normal until probably the last 5% of the game, and I hit a boss that was just too hard, and I got sick of it, and so I just dropped the difficulty, and it became a lot easier. And I was happy with that.
It's worth it. It's worth it to do that for sure.
It's more about the story for me than the JRPG gameplay, although I do love the gameplay as well. I was like, if this is going to cause me to not finish this game, I'm just going to drop difficulty. I'm not. Look, I'm an old man now.
Who are you trying to impress? We're not trying to impress anybody here.
That's right. And you're not going to judge me.
No.
We support easy mode.
We support easy mode. You could say we stan easy mode. That's how
we stan easy mode.
We stan easy mode in here. How funny would it be if people close to us did judge us? Like, I drop the difficulty on a game down to easy, and my wife walks in the room like, easy?
She's like, I can't look at you anymore.
I can't even be around you anymore right now.
You are not the person I thought you were.
You're not the man I fell in love with. And then she slams the door shut.
Well, anyway, these social links. So that would reverse the social link that you have with your wife, which you can do if you sometimes, because occasionally in social link situations, you'll be sort of asked a question, and there is a right answer to that question that will advance the link faster. Or on occasion, if you answer super wrong, you can reverse the social link, and then you have to do a bunch of stuff to get it back. So when you switch to easy mode, you reverse the social link with your wife.
Oh wait, so you can so it can go. It's not a one-way street.
It can go down. It generally doesn't, but it can go down.
That's
if you don't,
nice. That it has that kind of ability in there.
Yeah, and I think if you don't interact with somebody for 60 days, it also will just drop because they'll be like, I thought you were my friend. You haven't said a word to me in 2 months.
Yeah, which is funny because I feel like in real life you can get away with that a lot better than you think you could.
There are people that I haven't talked to for many, many years. And if I were to see them,
it's like, hey, man,
I'd be like, what's up? And we just go right back to it.
Yeah, exactly. It's fine.
Yeah. So this game is kind of all about balancing the limited hours that you have in a day between raising your social skills, making and growing friendships, and then, of course, fighting monsters in an alternate reality. It's standard high school stuff, really.
You know what's funny is that's the exact same loop of Stardew Valley is managing your time. Like that's the game of Stardew Valley is there's so much to do. What are you gonna focus on to be the most productive in this day? And the days go by quick. So it's like that I think I am drawn to that kind of gameplay.
Yeah.
In general.
Well,
now that you said it that way, that's what I'm saying. Is you said that's the first time you've said it that way to me, and I'm like, well, am I about to link socially with some people? I think so.
Sounds like you might be into Persona.
I would watch you easy though.
Persona. Yeah. Mm-hmm. There's I want to say the reload has like 5 difficulties. There's like story difficulty, which is basically like you're not going to lose. There's easy, which is like if you're paying attention, you're not going to lose. And then normal is like, yeah, you gotta think about this, and then it just goes from there. There's a manic mode, which I think you can only do on New Game Plus, which is supposed to be just extremely hard and unforgiving, and I'm not here for it.
No, we're not here for that.
Also, I just spent 75 hours playing this game, and I'm not just going to do it again. I'll do it again in 20 years when they remake Reload.
They're like, come on, just do it again, Tyler. It's fine.
Just play it.
When they make it in like the life sim pod that we have in 20 years that you put into, and then you are in high school and you're just sitting in this pod.
Just pretending to be Persona.
They plug you in to the Matrix. Yeah.
Can't wait. So the main like story thing in Persona 3 is sort of revolves around this concept called the Dark Hour. So you know how every Persona game kind of has its own like alternate reality. Persona 3's is the Dark Hour, and pretty early on you realize that this is I hope this isn't too spoilery, but you realize that this is the result of some crazy science experiments that went wrong a long time ago, and now the Dark Hour is a thing that exists. It happens at midnight every night, and not everyone can perceive it. The people who can't perceive the Dark Hour, they just turn into coffins for that hour. It's like a 25th hour of the day.
That's dark and scary.
Yeah, this game's all about death. Like that is the main theme of this game is death and accepting it. And then
heavy topics for high school.
Yeah. So it's probably in tone like the darkest of the Persona games, I would say. I mean, the way the kids evoke their personas is by taking a fake gun and pointing it at their heads and pulling the trigger. Like
I remember that. So
but they are fake guns. They're not real guns.
We say this is the Empire Strikes Back of Persona.
Yes,
it's the darkest chapter.
Yes, I would say it is the Empire Strikes Back of.
Would
Persona.
you say that the Persona 2 one with Hitler is the Phantom Menace or the Attack of the Clone Wars?
Ooh. I'm going to go Phantom Menace because there are some redeeming qualities of Phantom Menace. Also, those games are good though. This is not a fair comparison because those movies are not good.
Oh, I know. I'm putting you in the challenge mode right now. That's what I'm doing right now.
Those movies are not good. The Persona games are actually good. Yeah. So yeah, it's really weird when someone walks by while you're playing this game and they're just like, did that girl just like shoot herself? And you're like, no, not really, but kind of. It's like, but when
symbolic.
She does it, it gives her magic powers. Yeah, she gets magic powers when she does it. So like, it's fine.
I just picture you being like, it's symbolism.
It really
realize
is.
it.
It is symbolism. So once you've awakened your persona at the very beginning of the game, you see it. You like join this dorm filled with other Persona users, and they call themselves the Special Extracurricular Execution Squad, or SEAS. I think that's what that stands for. I just said it off the top of my head, and now I'm worried that I said it wrong. Persona. Let me Google that real quick. Specialized Extracurricular Execution Squad.
So specialized, not special, but that's
not special,
fine.
But
that's
close enough.
Tyler, again, I don't think there's someone out there. Well, that's not true. I've seen the people that comment on our YouTube video. I'm wrong. There's people out there holding a notepad, freaking out. So never mind. I'm not going to say that.
Hey, good. If you're mad, you're listening. You know.
If you're mad, that's engagement.
That's right. There's no such thing as bad engagement.
That's right.
So the Seas, they fight shadows. They try to keep people from succumbing to this thing called apathy syndrome. Basically, these shadows like feast on the minds of people in the dark hour, and then they sort of become this like zombie, like apathy person in real life, where they just like don't care about anything and they're just kind of wandering through life.
So it's like depression.
Yeah,
like turns you into super depressed.
Yeah, they're kind of, so it's also symbolic, I think. So let's talk about all these characters because so many characters in this game.
I love new characters. Let's get into it.
You got Yukari Takiba, who is a friendly and popular classmate. She uses wind type moves in battle. She loves investigating things, and her arcana is the Lover's Arcana, and she is a love interest in this game. If you
romanceable,
yes, should you choose to pursue. You've got Junpei Iori, who is your he's like your best friend. He's the class clown. He's a bit of a hothead. You kind of fight with him a little bit. He's going through some stuff. Everybody in this game is going through some stuff that they sort of get through by the end of the game. But he uses fire type moves in battle. You got Akihiko Sanada, who is an upperclassman. He loves boxing and working out. He specializes in electric damage and physical damage. Mitsuru Kirijo, she's also an upperclassman whose family runs the Kirijo group, which is a sciencey place that sort of caused the Dark Hour. She specializes in ice damage, and she knows she has her second language is French. In the Japanese version of the game, her second language is English, but in the English localized version, that doesn't really make any sense for her to speak English and English, so they changed it to English and French. Which is kind of it's interesting in this game in particular because they don't seem to be consistent on what language the characters are all speaking. Like in that example, like she speaks English and French, but there are times where references are made to like how a word is in English, and you're like, well, we know we just said it in English, so it's like it's sort of implied that we're hearing English, obviously, because we're playing the localized version, but the characters are actually speaking Japanese. But they seem to be a little bit inconsistent on that. So,
dude, you know what show? Tangent, hit the button. Shogun on FX is interesting because Japanese, they speak Japanese in the show. It's subtitled, right? English and Portuguese are just in English. They just say they're translating, but both languages are in English. It's a little different. It's an interesting thing. So like English, because the person that gets washed ashore is an Englishman, and Portuguese are currently in Japan. Like that's what's going on. And so whenever he's speaking to a Japanese character, she actually is speaking Portuguese and he's speaking Portuguese, but they don't ever mention. They just go they're interchanged between them constantly. They just don't even. It's just kind of assumed. They mentioned it at the beginning, and you're just like, okay, and it's just kind of weird.
Interesting,
but,
yeah. So it's like a Star Trek where they use like the universal translator, where it's just like everybody speaks English. It's not because every alien speaks English; it's because they're like things are being automatically translated for us, and also so they don't have to invent languages every episode.
Yeah. It's like everyone luckily speaks Galactic Basic or Common in D&D. You know what I mean? Like it's that kind of thing. So I just found that. Yeah. You just reminded me of that with that change up there.
So anyway, Mitsuru specializes in ice damage. She's sort of French themed. She has a fencing like rapier that she fights with. And she's very cool. You've got Fuka Yamagishi, who is a shy girl, she's sort of your like guy in the chair, like your oracle. She doesn't actually fight, but she provides information on battles, like on enemy weaknesses and stuff like that. Yeah, she's your Barbara Gordon. You got Shinji Aragaki, who's like way too cool for school. He used to be part of the group, and then some bad stuff happened, and he left. So I bet you want to figure out what the bad stuff is. Guess you better play the game. He specializes in physical moves. He has a history with Ken Amada, who is a kid who specializes also in electric type moves. He has a history with Shinji that I do not want to spoil because it's good, very dark. And then you have Aegis, who's an android created specifically to destroy shadows. Also, she has a persona. Her specialty is physical moves. She's very important to the story. Later on, well, I mean the whole time, of course, but later on, especially. And then you got the best one of them all, Koromaru, who's just a dog, just an actual dog, and not like in Persona 4 you have like this bear character who talks Teddy. Persona 5 you have Morgana, the cat, who claims that they're not a cat, but they like talk. They're full on character. No, this is just a dog. He barks. He uses knives with his mouth. He just like holds them in his mouth. And he got his persona like he was the dog of like a religious figure who was like attacked by shadows at his temple, and the dog like tried to save him but wasn't able to, and then now the dog has a persona. So anyway, the dog comes and hangs out and fights with you and is great, and you could take him on walks, and he finds items for you.
I think when I watched you play, it was like right as the dog was revealed to be a persona user. And when I was watching you play it, I'm like, This might be the greatest game ever made.
Yeah, I have convinced my partner that the next dog we get, we are naming that dog Koromaru.
Perfect. I love it.
Because Koro's just like a great like nickname for a dog too.
Koro, yeah, just Koro. Yeah, Koro
Yeah.
is the short words. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. So anyway, we love
Okay,
Koromaru.
I have an important thing to ask you now that you finished going through the characters. Did you romance someone on your playthrough?
I did. I romanced Yukari.
You did. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And that was okay. So that's the first person that you mentioned. Okay.
Yeah. And there's a few options there. You can also romance Mitsuru or Fuka. Not Aigis, although she has an arc of like wanting to become human. She's kind of like a Data type character, making lots of Star Trek references this episode, I suppose.
Great. Measure of a Man, best Star Trek.
That is my favorite Star Trek episode. Yeah, and I think maybe there's a couple other options that you can also romance that are like not part of like the core team, but you have a couple other options. So during the dark hour, the high school, Gekkoukan High School, turns into a place called Tartarus, which is a 264 floor tower filled with shadows, and those are the enemies that have to be fought in the game. So shadows prey on people's minds, causing them to have apathy syndrome, like what we were talking about, which is very similar to depression, I would say. It kind of just zonks people out. It's really a growing problem in Tatsumi Port Island. On nights with a full moon, you get a big boss persona that shows up and wants to attack and do bad story stuff. So you always have to fight on these full moon days. You're sort of like, basically you're balancing your life between all the real world and school stuff, and then preparing, like basically level grinding, but like preparing for this boss fight on the night of the full moon. So you're on a bit of a timer when it comes to those sorts of things. When it comes to like story stuff, I think if you lose on the boss fights, you're like able to jump back a week, which it should be enough time for you to like fully
power
prepare.
Level, essentially.
Yeah, if you're too weak and you need to go back and grind, like it's like, okay, we can jump back a week. I think it's a week.
So you can be
irresponsible. I don't know.
You never know. So you can be irresponsible though, and like get lost in the social sauce, you could say, and then not level up your guy enough, and then you'll actually get to lose the boss battle.
Yeah. Luckily, especially in Reload, you can kind of get all of the leveling that you need to do done in a single night of Tartarus, which is kind of the way that I think people do it optimally. Is they'll wait not until the very or maybe like up until the very end of the 30 days, and then they'll just like spend one long night in Tartarus, just like because there's a limit on how many floors you can go up between like big story beats. So once you hit that limit, that kind of means that you're probably leveled enough. So as long as you hit that limit, you're going to be okay for the boss fight. So you can kind of do all the social stuff for like 28 or 29 days. And then on the 30th day, you can just like head into Tartarus and just like grind it out for a few hours, which is what I did for most of the time. So that's how I recommend playing the game. Again, I don't want to get too much. Yes. Pro tips. Don't go to Tartarus every night. That's in Reload. In the original versions, they had this like mechanic of like a fatigue mechanic or like a sickness mechanic, where if you stayed in Tartarus for too long, you would get sick, and then you wouldn't be as effective in battle. And if you did it too long, you would have a bad time outside of battle for a few days too, where you would like have to go to bed early. You would like kind of lose. So you sort of even had to balance that part of it. People didn't really like that, I think, and so they removed it in Reload. I think that was a good change. It's like a neat idea for like making you sort of risk reward on how long do I stay in Tartarus, that you don't have to do in Reload. You can just stay in Tartarus as long as you want in Reload, unless you like run out of a resource, I guess. But they provide a lot more resource replenishment items in Reload than they do in the original ones. Like it used to be SP restoring items, just kind of like your magic points. They were like very rare and hard to get, and so once you ran out of SP in a Tartarus run, you were just like, all right, well, guess I'm done for tonight, and then you'd come back another night with fully replenished SP. But in Reload, there's plenty of SP replenishment items, so you could just do it all in one night. It's a good change, but I think it was a neat idea at least.
Yeah, it just seems like it's always hard to put something in there that like debuffs the player, that makes them feel like less strong. It's kind of a bummer. Like I want to grind it out, I can't grind because now I have to be debuffed by this like thing, this arbitrary thing you put in there to make it so I have to go do the other stuff. Like
right, yeah, and I can imagine from the game design perspective, they're like, well, we don't want you to feel like you have to grind, so we're actually going to make it to like there's a point where it's just not effective for you to keep grinding, and that way you won't feel like you have to. In practice, it sort of was just like, don't tell me what to do, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So that's kind of a bummer. And there's not a lot of level grinding required in this game anyway. That's not just like feeling like you're making progress going up the floors. Like you don't really have to go back and like fight stuff you've already fought before, as long as you're
That's
like,
good.
if you're fighting all the shadows on each floor as you go through, and you don't even have to do that, to be honest, you're gonna be at the right level when the boss comes. So at least on normal, the normal up to the normal difficulty. Maybe the higher difficulties require some more grinding. I don't know. But yeah,
That's
I don't
good.
want to go too much further into the story here because it's really good. It's super anime. It's a fun downer of a story because it's pretty dark, but it has some twists and turns, and it's just a good time. It's very long. There is an anime adaptation, which I haven't watched, but I hear it's okay. And there's also some like bad guy Persona users, and of course you fight the embody. This shouldn't be a spoiler if you know anything about Personas. You fight the embodiment of death by the end of the game.
Oh yeah.
You know, it's not a JRPG unless we're like killing some form of god by the end of the game.
Yeah.
And it's not a Persona game if it's not done by high school kids. So
that's right. We love it here.
Yep. So the combat in Persona 3 is turn-based JRPG, and 3 introduces a lot of concepts that'll go on to become standard in the series. So each character has just one persona, though that persona does sort of grow and change by the end of the game as you like reach specific story beats, like and people sort of confront their inner demons. They'll like get an upgraded version of their persona. The protagonist can hold many different personas and he can switch between them at will. There are story reasons why he can do this, but I do not want to spoil them for you. The game introduces the press turn system where attacking enemies with their weakness will cause them to be knocked down, and then the player gets another turn. If you knock down all the enemies in battle, you can execute an all-out attack, which just deals a bunch of damage and is always satisfying because it's just like all 4 of your party members will just like cartoon mob rush all of the bad guys and do a bunch of damage to them, and it's really fun and satisfying every time. Which is really good because sometimes JRPG, especially on the easier fights or like the trash fights, like they're not very engaging. You just kind of hit attack over and over again, and then you're done. In this, you don't have to think a lot on trash fights, but you have to think a little bit, and it's worthwhile because then you get the all-out attack, and you're like, I'm good at this game.
Dude, you gotta love that. Every game needs something like that, like something satisfying like that, to just be like you're doing the right things, you know?
Yeah. In the PS2 versions of the game, it was controversial because the party members beyond the main protagonist, they're all controlled by AI. And you can set the AI to like sort of like maybe focus on healing or focus on doing damage, or like you have some control over it, but you can't issue direct commands to anyone who isn't the main protagonist. This was widely regarded as a bad move and not fun because like you're just like, Yukari, I just need you to use your wind spell right now on this boss that's weak to wind, and you didn't. You did something else, and now we lost, and I'm bummed because I lost from something
it
that
like, it made gambling. It made it like a slot machine. You gotta pull the right move.
It was. I mean, like the AI was smart enough to like it usually made pretty good decisions, but on the case where it didn't, you're just like, I lost, and I feel like it wasn't my fault, and that feels bad. So in subsequent re-releases, Portable and Reload, you can still do the AI thing if you want to, but everything is you have the ability to give direct commands to everybody. And then Persona 4 and 5 also did that as well. So there was much rejoicing. Everybody loved that. And if you liked the old system, you can still use it if you want, I guess. Nice. When you're exploring, I already talked about the sickness thing in Tartarus. If you're exploring and you stay in there too long, and how they got rid of that in Reload. And I think there is no similar mechanic in Persona 4 or 5 either. So yeah, and it's JRPG, so you gain XP, you level up. Personas level up independently of the protagonist. So the protagonist has his own level, which governs how high of a level he's able to fuse personas in the Velvet Room, which is a mainstay of Persona games as well. The Velvet Room has your boy Igor, your girl Elizabeth. They help you create new personas out of personas you've already acquired. There's generally some sort of death theme along with it, like a guillotine or something like that. It's very like when you fuse personas, you're like killing them. So it's not like other monster-based RPGs will usually have like some sort of breeding thing in them. This is not that. It's like killing personas to make a new one. Although you can always pull out personas you've already had. There's like a save function called the Compendium where you can register personas that you have for free. And then if you pay money, you can pull out anything that you've already registered. So you don't really lose those personas if you really want them. Igor will return in Persona 4 and 5. He has different helpers. in place of Elizabeth. They are all named after characters from Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, and I think that's kind of fun,
I like that too.
With like the fusion of personas, Frankenstein. It's good.
Good stuff. Yeah, fun.
Like the Velvet Room and Igor and all of those helpers seem to exist independently of whatever's going on in Persona. Like they sort of they govern a lot of the personas themselves. Like they seem to know a lot about that portion of it, but they don't have any effect on the main story, at least in Persona 3, like the Dark Hour, all that stuff. They really don't have any effect on that. So it's like, it's this weird, like, I'm trying to think of like what the right word is for it, but it's this weird, like separate, like group of people that are just in all the Persona games, but don't really have an effect on the story, but like have a huge effect on the gameplay. It's very strange. And he is voiced in this one, which he was not in the original Persona 3. So in Reload, he's voiced, I should say. In older releases of Persona 3, he's not voiced. Same with Persona 4. And then in Persona 5, he's voiced. And they do a fun switcheroo thing with the voice in Persona 5, which I don't want to spoil. And maybe that's a spoiler in itself, but they do some fun stuff with the voice in Persona 5. So that's kind of all the gameplay there. I try to find some information on like the development of it. It started a few years after the release of Persona 2 Eternal Punishment. It took about 3 years to be developed. There was a gap of about 7 years for Western audiences between Persona 2 and 3, which is not as long as the 8 years between 4 and 5, but still a pretty large gap. Although Persona fans did get a lot of stuff in between 4 and 5, like the fighting games. You got Persona 3 Portable. You got Persona 4 Golden. But other than that, I wasn't able to dig up like a whole lot on the development of the game. Seems like it just was fairly standard development cycle. So that's kind of all I got on that. But now my favorite thing to talk about in every episode is the legacy of whatever game is that we're talking about. So
I like this section too. I think it's important. It's like the context. Why are we talking about this?
Yeah. Like why is this game so cool, especially given the time period, right? It's a great game on its own, but how did this game like affect the industry or other games around it? So the first two Personas were moderate successes in the West. They were more successful in Japan, I think. 3 is what really broke it wide open for Western audiences in like North America and Europe. I think it was like the high production value, the novelty of the social link system, which was pretty new for games at the time. At least it was to me. And that's what kind of got people talking about it. It's kind of what got me interested in it. Like I hadn't heard of a game like where you had to balance your high school life with your like world-saving demon fighting life. I'm sure there are plenty of examples of games that like sort of did this kind of thing before Persona, but this was like the first time I feel like it really hit the mainstream. And I know that like balancing high school with saving the world is sort of a standard trope in a lot of Japanese anime, especially like the magical girl genre, where like Sailor Moon is kind of like that sort of thing, right? But it was really new to me back then, and I really appreciated it. So I think the accessibility of it being a fairly standard but still innovative JRPG combat system combined with the novelty of the social link system really elevated it into like people talking about it, or at least gamers were talking about it. For me, it was probably my most thorough introduction to Japanese culture. This was when I was in high school. Because unlike the localization of the first Persona game, Persona 3 is just like really, really steeped in Japanese culture, and it doesn't shy away from it at all. This is where I learned how like Japanese honorifics work, how school works in Japan, how just like being introduced to lots of different Japanese foods that were on display there.
Hot pot,
yeah. Lots of ramen outside of the like top ramen and cup noodles, which is how a lot of folks in like at least in North America, I think when they think of ramen, they just think of this like quick food that you just but it's actually like it's pretty good if you get like good high quality ramen.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, this was pretty formative for me in my understanding of Japanese culture, which I think is something the team was going for when they localized it. I think they purposefully were like, let's not westernize this too much and like make it very Japanese, and I think that was really cool. So because of its success, we got a couple sequels in Persona 4 and 5. We got a bunch of spin-offs as well. There's some fighting games, some dungeon crawling games, some mobile games, some rhythm games, lots of different genres, lots of different games owe their existence to Persona 3. So yeah, I think the best way to play this game, of course, is Persona 3 Reload, which just came out a couple months ago as of this recording. So like the graphics are enhanced. The presentation is as flashy as Persona 5 is, which was like the really cool thing about Persona 5 was just like, man, everything was so stylish in Persona 5, and Reload does that, but for 3. And And they added a lot of quality of life features to the game, makes it more fun. You can adjust the difficulty in the middle of the game now, which you couldn't do in older releases. You picked a difficulty and like that was it for the rest of the game. And I put it on easy towards the end, which was really nice to be able to do that. They made improvements to shuffle time, which was this feature after some battles in the game. You can like pick a bonus from cards, and what they would do in the original was they'd show you all the cards and then they'd flip them over and then they just like move them around. And so you had to figure out which one that you wanted and then like watch it as it moved around and hopefully pick the right one, which was like cool at first and then really frustrating if you messed it up because then you would be like, I didn't get the thing I wanted and it didn't feel good. Like when you picked the one that you wanted, it didn't feel good. It felt like you just like neutral, like you got the thing that you chose. And then if you picked the wrong one, it just felt bad. So anyway, they don't do that in this new one. Shuffle time is just like, here's some cards. You want them? They added some cool roguelike elements to each run of Tartarus, where you get some sort of like temporary buffs to this run of Tartarus, which sort of incentivizes you to stay in Tartarus longer because you will lose those buffs when you leave and come back and you'll have to get them again. So that was cool. They added theurgy attacks, which are kind of like limit breaks in Final Fantasy games. So just like big ultimate moves that sort of charge up as the battle goes on. Those are fun in Reload. They're not in the other versions of the game. They're really, really satisfying. They have really cool animations. I love it. I could just talk about this game all day. So I hope they do like a Reload version of Persona 4 because now that game is starting to feel a little bit dated. Although it did get a golden sort of re-release on PS Vita, and now that's on PC and modern consoles as well, which is a little bit better than the base game. But I would love to see a full-on remake the same way they did for Persona 3. So yeah, that's kind of all I've got for us today. So if you play this game, you want to talk about it, send us an email, add us on Discord. I love talking about Persona, and I want to hear about your experience with Persona 3 specifically, as we're talking about today. But yeah, Persona in general. I just love it. So that's it. What you been playing, Mike?
Well, I have one weird one. I'm going to do that last. So took a break from Stardew Valley. Hades 2 just got released into early access. Made me reminded that I played Hades 1, loved it, and then couldn't beat it because it fell off of Game Pass. So it was on sale for $8 on Steam. So I picked it up and I started playing Hades 1 again. And it's really funny. The skill difference of like knowing what's going on. I made it almost to Hades on like my 4th or 5th run, which is crazy. And right now I'm on a really good run where I'm like at the Temple of Styx. I just got there and I'm like, all my death defiances are up. I'm like super confident. So we'll see how that goes after this recording. But that's a great game. I love it so much. Here's the big one. I don't think I told you this because I don't know if we've spoken since this happened. But I went to a birthday thing a week ago and talked to my friend about it. And he bought me a starter pack in Star Citizen. As a gift. It was a very generous gift. It's like the $45 starter pack in Star Citizen. So I have a ship and I've played the game twice, like 2-3 hour sessions is what I've played. And I thought I could go through it because you and I both have our things talking about it where like, I know that a lot of people think it's a scam. After playing it, I don't think it's a scam, but I think there's some predatory things in the video game that are problematic to me. So this was my experience. I figured we can go through that right now, right? That's okay. We got time. So I loaded up the game. The first session, I learned how to fly in the tutorial. I got all set up. Things were fine, flying around. It took me a long time to meet up with my friend. We had to like across systems, so we had to like quantum jump there. We did one mission where there was one enemy in space. We blew it up. We got the money. Then we called it, right?
Nice.
Second session, I'm like, hey, I really want to try the first person shooting aspect of it because there's FPS missions. The whole point is you fly anywhere, you land, you get out of your ship. It's first person, right? So we sign up to do a mission. Once again, it takes us about an hour to just get ready to do the mission. We fly there. We go into this cave. None of the NPCs loaded. So we ran around this cave for like 20 minutes wondering what was going on before we got to the end and realized it's an empty cave. There's no
just
bad guys in here.
Like
just a bug. Just a bug.
Oh.
So nothing in the cave. We both quit the game because when you quit the game, it resets you at the last space station you were at. So that's how we fast traveled. We quit the game, reopened it again, and then we appeared at the space station. Then we go do another mission that's FPS We're about an hour and a half in at this point, and we get there. We're in a ship together, which is awesome. Like being a crew on a ship together with your friend is fun. That's a fun experience. We land. I'm sitting there shooting guys, wondering why this is so weird. I forgot to put my helmet on, so I have no HUD. So I don't know how many bullets I have in my gun, and my head's exposed. So I got downed like 3 or 4 times before we both got down, and it just ended, and we died. And
Oh,
yeah, and so there's things about it where if you are in to hyper realistic, and that's I'm putting that in big quotes if you're not watching the video, um, games where it's like a simulation, specifically a flight sim. Like if you're a flight sim person and you have joysticks and you love flying, then guess what? You're gonna love Star Citizen because the flying in spaceships mechanic is so complex and there's so much stuff going on. It's crazy, right? But otherwise, I would say wait until this game is, if it's ever actually released, to play it. I know the big thing about it is they are taking a break from this persistent universe thing that I played to work on their single player story game, Squadron 42. Who knows if that's ever going to come out? And like, I, I feel bad saying don't buy this game, but I really think for people that aren't into flight sims, don't get this game. You know what I mean?
wait for it to be done. It feels
What?
like scope creep the game. Like they just like it
Yes.
just keeps getting bigger and bigger. And like I understand having big ambitions, but there's also like a certain point where it's like you just got to commit to like the right feature set, and then maybe you add stuff later.
The joke is that my friend and I were talking about, because he realizes it, like, and we had fun playing. We had fun just hanging out. We hung out
Yeah,
in space. It was fun. So I had a good time. I'm not like 0 out of 10ing the game or whatever, but the developers are doing this thing. The joke is like, oh, we need to fix all these systems, and they're working on the physics of bed sheets in a space station. Like that's kind of the running thing with it. And I agree with you. It is scope creep. It's like they're not focusing on getting a product out. They're just getting lost in the sauce of details. And
yeah,
that's an issue. And I mean, this, like, oh, the other thing that happened on the second playthrough, I lost a bunch of items. Like the game just bugged out. The servers freaked out. My backpack disappeared with all the items inside of it. And that's just a part of the game, though. Like you just lose stuff, and they do server resets all the time. So you lose things. Like it's very much, uh I'm not gonna like say it's bad because it's not. Like again, the flight sim parts of it are really fun. Like flying around in a spaceship feels awesome. The one of the best things we did is I got in his ship, we flew around, we just landed on a random planet for fun to check it out, and it was like a beach. And so we just landed on this beach in this like random planet. We were the only people on this giant planet. It was really cool. But yeah, I would say pass. Also, the predatory thing for me is like they're selling ships for like thousands of dollars in real world money. And that just seems like a really sketchy thing to do on a game that, who knows, may never release. Like
yeah.
it
That
may never come out.
I don't love when games in early access have transactions inside the game. Like, oh, we will take your money. Like, game's not done yet, so they have like an excuse for when things don't work. They're like, but we'll still take your money. And it's like, if it's
Yeah,
done, I'll give you money for it. If it's not done, I don't want to give you any more money.
exactly. And
Like,
I
profit.
mean, my $45, like, and I didn't, again, I got it gifted. My friend was really nice to get me that. $45 is not bad. If you want to try this game and you're like, I have 45 bucks, go for it. You know, that's
Yeah.
fine. Like, but here's the thing that I don't know about the game, and I haven't really done a lot of research on this. What my $45 starter pack gets me is the download of the game, a ship, which you have to have, right? And then 3 months of ship insurance. I don't know what that means when the 3 months is up, and I'm kind of excited to see what happens. So, like, I'm gonna keep playing the game on and off, like sporadically, just hang out with my friend. It's a fun
Mhm.
game. I like that. Um, but after 3 months, I'm really curious to see what happens with my ship. If it does that mean if it blows up, I'm just out of luck unless I pay them more money? Because that would feel real bad.
That would feel
It'll
real
feel
bad. Yeah. And
really bad.
there's probably a like, well, no, you can earn a new ship. It's like if you just spend 40 hours like grinding in-game currency when you don't have a ship, maybe you can buy a new ship. I don't know.
Yeah, I again, I don't know, and you can buy ships with like the in-game currency. So there is a thing where it's like you do missions, like the whole gameplay loop right now is just fly around, do missions, get money. Right, that's all you can really do is like kind of have a job. It's a sandbox. It's a giant sandbox. But it's just, yeah, if you're not going into it with the mindset of, hey, I'm going to lose stuff, bugs are going to happen, things aren't going to work, then you're not going to have a really good experience. And that's just the way the game is, I think. I'm not really saying it's bad. It also, the community, like, seemed really nice. Everyone was kind. No one, I was not your typical chaotic mess of an all chat. Like, everyone was like answering each other's questions. If someone was like, hey, I'm new, like, people would help them out. So it was like kind of a kind community in a slightly broken game. But a game I never would have picked up. I never would have thought about getting this at all. I would never have spent the money, but it was really generous of my friend to do that. So thank you. I don't want to say his name and dox him on the podcast, but Tyler, what you been playing?
Well, I have been spending a lot of my time consuming lots of media around Unreal Engine. I want to learn how to like make some stuff. And then I have, maybe I talked about this last week a little bit, but I have like kind of some ideas for some dumb little games that I want to like actually start to try to make. But when I'm, so the only like games I've been playing is I've been playing a lot of Slay the Spire on my phone. I think it's like a perfect phone game. I really enjoy it. It's on Apple Arcade, so I don't have to pay anything for it. No microtransactions, just game is what it is. You just play it. It's fun. I'm really enjoying that. Otherwise, I'm kind of in a little bit of a game lull. I just spent a lot of time playing Rebirth, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and then Persona 3. And so I'm kind of like, I'm trying to do some other stuff with my free time. But I think I'm going to start up Mario RPG soon or get back to Mario Rabbids Spark of Hope. Because I never finished that. And it's great. I just like put it down one day and just didn't come back. So I got to do that. But yeah, otherwise, I haven't really been playing too many games. I mean, a little game lull after like going really hard on Persona 3 and then stopping it for Final Fantasy and then coming back to Persona. Like I really played a lot of games. So
you gotta
don't want to burn out, you know?
You gotta have those breaks, yeah.
Yep. I played a little bit of Apex Legends a couple weekends in a row as well with some friends.
Ooh, how'd you do?
Kind of fun. We do
Really?
okay. Well, and we won the first one that I played because I think it was like a warm-up bot game where they just sort of they do give you the easy dub so that you don't immediately put the game down. So we won that one. We might have won another one too. The two people that I play with, that I was playing with, are pretty good, so I can just kind of like just be along for the ride, really.
I like that game a lot. Yeah, I don't like that I spent so much money on it on Xbox and it doesn't carry over to PC.
Ooh, so that's a bummer.
Yeah, it's a big bummer. So like all the stuff I've unlocked, all the characters I have unlocked, all the skins are just locked on the Xbox account. So my thought was I would play Apex Legends again if and when they introduce cross progression. Like if they introduce that and I can bring that stuff over to PC, then I would totally play it. Because but also I'm just bad. I'm bad at competitive first person shooters now. I'm
Same.
I have a hard time. You know what I mean?
And I don't want to get good.
No, I don't either. I don't have the energy for that. I'd rather just do something else.
Yep.
But yeah, but that I think that's the episode today, right? We're gonna end on do something else. That's what we're gonna. I don't know what we're doing next week. Maybe some more Lego games. I did notice that it's not Lego Islands 2 and 3 next. There's some other Lego games in there that I'm pretty excited to talk about. So we might do that next week. We also had a guest potentially that you were working on.
We've got a couple in the works a little bit. I need to follow up with them and maybe get some more solid times down. But
I'm excited for both of those things because one of them is a topic that we should have covered many, many times and haven't. And the other one is really out there and I'm so excited for it.
Yeah.
With that, the things you can do to support us, you can go to codexpodcast.net. That has all our links on there. You can send us an email at codexhistorypodcast@gmail.com. You can join our Discord. Once again, if you do join the Discord, you got to go ahead and click the little green check mark in the rules section before you see everything else. And with that, Tyler, would you like to say goodbye to everyone?
I would. Goodbye, everyone.